Here's the rack from the deer that I shot, 28 inches. This is kind of a good deer for this because the antlers aren't quite symmetrical at all. Your eyes stick out too far and it looks like your deer got kicked in the nuts. Taxidermy is Bondo and Bondo is taxidermy. Hopefully now you'll have some of the tools that took me years to acquire to mount your own critters. Hey there everybody, this is step number 4 in the how to mount a whitetail. Hide prep. This is important. All this stuff is crucial, but like this step, really take your time. You know, the better you do this, better your deer is going to turn out, like the small little pieces of it. So I do all this with a knife and a sharpening steel. Essentially what you're doing is you're completely turning the nose, lips, eyes, the eyelid, like you got to turn it all out, inside out, make sure it's thin. You're leaving all the hair, you know, so you got to take your time when you're doing it. Pay attention. And then you got to soap all the holes, like this hole here, this giant hole here. You know, at first thought, you'd be like, oh my gosh, the tannery, they suck. They made a huge mistake, put a huge hole in it. I bet what happened is this deer he's a little bit older, very mature. I'm fairly certain just by looking at this side of it that the rip is not from the tannery. It's not from like a cut. So I would bet that this deer took a tine that gouged him pretty deep and he was wounded. Not wounded, but like it was all the way down to where it probably left a scar. And then when they ran it over the shaver and they pulled it, that it just popped loose. So there's a hole in there. It shouldn't be too bad. Sew that up. It's not the end of the world. Normally, these kind of holes suck because they do. But so we're just going to get right into thinning the nose. Now I take my fingers and I put them inside underneath the nose pad, and I just whittle away at it. Now you'll see, you know, where the nose pad comes through, kind of like before it turns kind of the bluish color like the ears. Essentially all you're doing is you're just getting down to the nose pad. There's the nose pad. You're just getting down to the nose pad from the inside so that when you set the skin with clay underneath it, that it is not going to dry crispy and in a way that you don't want it to. So you work. I always work from here first, center of the nose pad, out to right there is where the nostril goes in. They left a huge chunk of cartilage on here, totally okay, because I'm going to keep what I need and I'm going to cut off the rest. So, and I'm feeling with both my fingers just to make sure that there's no hard chunks, like thick pieces of skin still. Okay, working our way. Now this is the back of the inside of the nostril. Now they did a good job of putting a few holes in here, which is annoying, but you know, when you get them back from the tannery, you never really know what you're gonna get. So if you do it yourself, you can blame the holes on yourself. When you send it to somebody, you can blame the holes on a 30, 40 year experienced guy at the tannery or a 16-year-old kid that's his first job. Regardless, you can bitch and moan about it. Ain't gonna do anything. Just have to fix it. And for the most part, all this stuff is fixable. And that's kind of what separates, you know, good taxidermists and bad taxidermists is, can you fix the problems? Because you're always running into problems. Now this is the top of the nose pad, where it transitions into the fur that goes up the bridge of his nose. You can see how you can see the blue underneath. That's just the black nose pad. So that's all looking pretty good. Now we'll go do the other side. Work our way from the nose, middle, center, out to... Like I said, all you're doing is trying to get a consistent, thin piece of leather here so that when you pin it in place, it dries how you are intending it to dry, and it doesn't twist, turn, ball up on you, get all junky. That's why, like, I see, you know, how many times you watch you see a Facebook post and, oh, a fresh mounted deer, and they got freaking pins all over the place. I don't know why they have to do that. With good glue and a thin skin, wherever you set it, it's not going to move much. And if it does move, it's easy to monitor it over the next couple of days, which you should do anyway. You shouldn't mount it and just forget about it. You should mount it and then check it. Check it every 12 hours. Check it every 24 hours, you know? Monitor it for like 3-4 days. And if you keep it thin, you're not... I mean, this is like 5 minutes you're looking it over. Like, it's not like a huge deal. Okay. Like, I don't like this stuff. It's right at the top of the nose. Really get it nice and thin up there, so it dries nice. Okay. Now, see, they left me plenty of holes. I'll have to fix that one. It's a little thick and heavy here, so we'll... Careful, because you got holes all over the place. It's still thick there. Perfect. Now it's thin. Get it behind it. This here is a skinning hole from whoever fleshed it in Michigan. They just cut a little too far in there. Most of this stuff, like, you don't even have to go out of your way to fix it. You just sew it up and it'll mount up like normal. You don't have to hide anything. Like, most of it just hides itself for the most part. Occasionally you do get things that'll piss you off, whether it's nature that did it or a human, but just work around it. Now here, you only need... See where the hair comes in with the white part of the nostril? You only need like 1/4 inch of that nostril, that skin. So what I do is I take my knife and I find where the gap is between the hair and the outside edge right here, and I just cut it. Because you don't need all that extra skin. So that's, like I said, it's okay if they leave cartilage on there. It's all right. Because that all gets tucked inside, and then you build your epoxy to that, and it all just gets painted. So I just leave some of that skin. It's being annoying because of this. And then I just cut it here, because my epoxy, when I finish, will go right up to it. There's one nostril. Okay, go to the other one. It's already thinned out. Same thing. Cut what you don't need. Cut this stuff. Okay. So, now you have a nostril. Simple as that. And it's just enough skin to tuck but not too much. Then I go around the lip line and I make sure that's all thinned out. I'll sew all the holes at the end. So that's fine. Usually where they leave extra is right here. This lip, I just clean this out. Now, unlike, we'll just deal with that when we get there. I was going to talk about the lip and finish work, but we'll get to that when we build the face. Later step. Okay, and that's thin. Okay, they do a pretty good job there of that. So now you need enough skin to tuck in the foam, but not enough where it's just too much. So again, I leave myself, a little bit more, because here's the hairline right here. This is what you'll see. This all gets tucked. So I just go through and I cut off. I leave myself about a 1/2 inch here. Same with the corner. I leave myself about a 1/2 inch of skin. I tuck the entire lip. I'm sure people watching this are probably gonna be like, boo, don't do that. I don't care. This isn't for a competition. More than not, I'll show you. You don't need to leave that on there. Okay, here's a hole, but this is all gonna get tucked. So actually probably we'll just go from here. That's all my tucking pieces. And then we'll give myself my 1/2 inch. I'll go all the way to the nose pad here. That should be plenty. Okay. Nose, lips, done. Now let's go to the eyes. Make sure we're sharp. And I always start with where the duct is. Not ideal when it's a hole. I mean, all that gets tucked in, but unlike this one, it's a little bit less. But just get it thin. Try not to put holes around here because it's right where you're gonna see. But it's important to get this skin thin so that when you set your eyes and your clay, your skin isn't sitting an 1/8 inch or more on top of that. So when you set your clay work, it's essentially how your eye is going to look, and you're not floating a huge chunk of leather over the top of that and then trying to pin that into submission, because it's going to suck. So don't do that. Just get it thin. Now the eyes are a little bit different here. So same thing. I mean, it's pretty thin up here, and I can see here's the top lashes. I'm actually not even going to go over that because it's thin already. So I'm going to start at the lashes and then go to the eye opening. And here too, you're going to leave yourself about, between an 1/8 and a 1/4 inch to tuck. So just work your way around the eye. This is the top. It's pretty thick here yet, so we're going to take some of that out. Okay, what's very important now is the glands, all that are like between the eyelashes and the skin here. Those need to come out. So run your knife down into it, and you have to like fillet them out. And it's like a little gland that goes on the bottom of the eyelashes. Don't go crazy here because you're going to run into the eyelashes, and you're going to see that in a second. See that it's coming out? I've done this on thousands and thousands of deer and elk and bears. So take your time, but okay. There it is. That's got to come out. That can't be in there. And then you'll feel it, and then now it's just thin. Paper thin. Easy to tuck when you set it in place. Now, if you get this too thin, the eyelashes come out, so be careful there. Now we'll go do the bottom lid. Same thing. You're just getting it, you know, getting the skin thinned out. The lower lid, because it has lashes, it also has that same little gland series down the follicles that you have to pull out. Okay, and I'll do that right now. You can see it right here. Pull that out. It's a little thick here. Feels pretty good. Get that a little thinner. Now, if you do a cut hole in here, you'll have to fix it. So be careful. It's a little heavy down here. All that gets rolled in. So the thinner you get that, the easier you're gonna have a time tucking all your skin. Okay, so like before on the nose, you'll find the gap between the eyeball, or between the skin and where it gets tucked. I leave myself like a 1/4 inch. I just go around the eye here. And I leave myself what I use to tuck. Everything else gets thrown away. This is the inside corner of the eyeball. Boom. So that's all extra skin. Don't need that. So this is what you end up with right here. And this is what you start with. Yuck. Okay, so I'm not going to bore you with the other eye. The other eye, you do the exact same. But for sewing, essentially, you got to kill the animal, right? So usually there's just like a bullet hole. Boom. Right here. I need a marker. I'll show you how I do this. I don't have a marker. There's a marker. So, got a bullet hole. Whack. Right here. Boom. Animal's dead. Usually what happens is you get some bruising and hair falls out around it. Around the spot. So what you would do is you got to sew it back up. Now, how you sew them makes a difference. So this is bad because it's the lengthwise of the deer. How you would want to do it is make it so that when you stretch the hide to go around the form, that is how your sewing should go. So instead of vertical like this, because you'd pull on it when this is all sewed up and you pull on this, it's going to want to open this gap, which is going to be annoying. So what you'd want to do is you make a football like this and like this, and say the hair is missing here around the wound. You make like a little cut on both sides like this, and then you sew this up. So then when you yank on the hide to stretch it around the form, this is staying together and it's not the other way trying to open up. And the hair looks nicer if you cut it like that. So that's hot tip. Always do it like that. This situation is different. And this here, this isn't from the tannery. Well, you can tell it. There's a scar here. Deer probably took a tine to the neck. So I got to fix that too. So that's what you do. Sewing holes in the neck. I am probably going to sew this one from the front, just right down here. I often find that they look a little nicer when I sew them from this way than when I sew them from the back. But I'll do that next here, and then I'll do the other eye on my own time. You guys don't need to see that. You can go back and see that. So that's how I prep the hides, get them ready to go. What are we at for time here? So I don't want this to be, okay, 20 minutes. Plenty fine on battery. How about this one? Let's check it. 21%. Okay. Let's just sew that sucker up because we're here, you're here. I'm going to show you how I do it. So I still got to do that eye. I'll do that later. But this, pretty easy hole, honestly. Literally though, I'm just going to flip it like this and I'm going to sew it up. But I can start with it on this side. And I can get it. How I would do these is a single strand Power Pro. That's how I like it. It keeps my stitches tight and it keeps it low profile. So I just go in here. You probably can't even see what I'm doing. I go in, pull it through, and I just make a knot. Simple enough. Do it a couple times. Okay. Then we go through here. I'm going to flip it over. So I started on the inside, so I'm going to have to make my first part here on the outside. Now this is going to be really annoying to sew because hair's all in my way, but like I said, I find I get it to look nicer and the wound comes together better when I sew it from this way. So I'm just taking like maybe 2 pieces of hair in. I don't know if I need to get this a better spot here. Let me get closer to the camera. This other camera. Okay, so I'm going to keep my pointer finger in here and I'm going to go like, you know, 1/4 of an inch over and like 2 hairs in. And I'm going to pull that tight. Same thing, 1/4 of an inch over, couple hairs in, pull it tight. Or not tight, but just pull it all the way through your string. Same with the next thing. I'm going to go 4. And I do this when I'm sewing down the back. I go 4 stitches long, and then I pull it tight. Then I just keep on going. Now just keep it smooth. Smooth as fast. And looks nice. Keep your distances the same. Try not to, like, if you get hair in there, pull that hair out. Now this is going to show on the animal. It's literally right in front. So take your time if you run into a situation like this, because if you don't, it's going to look terrible and it's going to be noticeable. It would be completely faster to turn this inside out and sew it the other way. But, like I said, I find I get better results when I sew it from the inside. And it might not. Maybe this time it'll turn out like garbage. And I will cut my stitches out and I will do it from the other way if it looks terrible and try it. And if that looks worse, then I'll cut those stitches out and I will do this way again. Because You know, I want it to look the best I can. I'm going to just rip the stitch. So we're going to pull this out. Pull this. I pulled my stitch through the other side, which less than ideal. Back through the same hole, just grabbed a little more skin. Now because this particular incision that we have to sew up, sucks because when we try to wrap the skin around the form and we really crank on this to get it to fit, it's going to put a lot of tension on these stitches. So be sure you really take your time and, you know, keep them consistent and grab enough skin to where you feel like it won't pop when you pull on them. That'll just be something that you'll learn over time. You know, usually you go 2, 3, 4 pieces of hair deep on either side. It's going to be okay. How's this looking? Looks pretty good. And we're all the way up through there. So yeah, this is my stitch line. You can hardly tell. It's just, see, when you pull on it, they're going to want to open up when you wrap this around the hide. So we're going to, or the form. So we're going to have to be really careful. Oh, we're almost done. It's the thing about sewing. You just keep the needle going and then you're done sewing. Because sewing is, honestly, it's not my favorite part. So you just keep the needle going. Keep your stitches nice and clean. And soon enough, you'll be done. Now, on the matter of hide prep, why do I cut it completely down the back? To be honest, I don't know how people who don't do that are getting the sizes out of their deer. Like, I've tried it. I've tried to tube them, and like everyone else does that you see, I tried it. You know, I'm from Minnesota. We have huge animals. And if you tube that neck, you will never get the size back out of that hide. Especially if you send it to a tannery that is not yourself. So just cut it. Because I can literally sew that up and you will never see that sew line on a long-haired deer. Ever. And I could sew it up in 15 minutes. Once you actually get around the burrs and the antlers and you make it to the point where people tube it, that last bit does not take much to sew that. So I would rather take the size of the animal rather than tubing it and saving myself 15 minutes. Because forever, someone's going to have to look at this deer. Well, and forever in this case is me. It's my deer. I'm going to have to look at it. So I cut it completely, get the size I need out of it, sew it, and move on with my day. Okay, it gets a little hard to do this when you're down to the last inch because I can't stick my finger in there. So you really got to kind of just make it work. See, there's all this hair gets stuck in it. Pull that out. Now I made it to that point. We can stick the needle through it. We can finish it from in here. Bondo ears, baby, they don't break. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. We'll finish the last ½ inch here on the inside. Like, it's so much faster when you're sewing where you're not dealing with the hair, but like I said, I have better results on something I need to hide when I sew it from the front. Then to end it, same way I ended the ones with the ears, I just kind of go around it a couple times, tie knot, put it in there, do another one, tie knot, pull it tight, cut it, move on, next hole. But this one I'm going to check because and because it wasn't man-made, you know, if there's a little bit of a ruffle there, it's okay. Like, it's my deer. He got in a fight. He liked to fight. Clearly. He's all messed up when I got him. That is where I sewed. You can see it a little bit here. I'm telling you, when the skin dries, it's going to be invisible. Okay, perfect. Turned out really nice. Next thing I gotta sew is that. Now, and be mindful if it's a spot where you might see it and it's white hair, use white thread like the ears. If it's dark spot, dark hair, use dark thread. So I'm gonna sew this hole up just exactly the same how I sewed that hole. Finish that other eye, and when this hide is done, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna wrap it up. I'm going to protect the ears, so I'm going to wrap it up like this because I'm actually done for the day. And I'm going to take it. I always wrap it like this. I leave the ears out so they're not getting bunched up. I put that in a plastic bag, and I put that bag in the freezer. I put them in plastic because I don't want them to dry out. I don't know when I'm going to be able to actually mount it. So that's how I do it. Keeps the skin nice and moist, so when I do get back to it, it's just like it is right now when it thaws out. And it could stay in there for a year. It could stay in there for 2. Doesn't matter. So, but we're going to get to mount this maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day. Who knows? Thanks for watching. That's how I do hide prep. If you have any questions or a faster way of doing something, please comment, like, subscribe, share, whatever. The next part is when we actually will take a look at the form. We'll put the antlers on, and we'll move forward from there. So thanks for watching.